It's Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. You know what that means. It's time for your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast. And we have so much to get into tonight, including a red hot crowd over in France for WWE Backlash. The King and Queen of the Ring is back. And maybe it's possibly relevant again. We'll get into that too. And WrestleMania is heading to Vegas. Could also be heading to who knows where else, including possibly Saudi Arabia. All that and more. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Old Belt, 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 Big Old Belt. All I really want is that Big Old Belt, 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 Big Old Belt. All I really need that Big Old Belt.
Thanks for being with us here tonight, folks. Always glad to have you here with us at the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, live each and every Thursday, streaming at 8 p.m. on YouTube, Twitch, X, whatever platform you're talking about. We are there tonight to talk some pro wrestling with everybody. Glad you're here. It's me, Will. I got the Giant Crab Jamal to my right and Silly Celis to my left, making up the crew tonight. Gentlemen, how's it been this past week for you?
Well, actually, not bad. It's there's a lot of things we want to talk about. It involves travel, which is my favorite thing to do. So, I'm looking forward to a lot of things.
And good to be back. I know I had a little hiatus due to work situations, but I'm here and ready to talk.
Yeah, happy Teachers Appreciation Week for all of those out there.
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. Busy time of year for folks in education and those of us that are parents. So lots of stuff going on as we head towards summer, as we are now into May. But this past week, it's been a heck of an interesting week in wrestling because we had some overseas shows, which it's become the norm now. It is this normal thing now that these big events are happening overseas on a regular basis. And when we talked about things last week, as we talked about Backlash, we were kind of like, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's going to be in the afternoon. We like these afternoon shows, but there was nothing like blow away. Oh my God, I can't wait to see this. We were just kind of like, all right, I think it's going to be an interesting show. Lo and behold, SmackDown comes on the night before Backlash, and suddenly everyone's taking note. Oh, these French fans are out of their mind. And it changed the entire tone of things going into Saturday. That for some reason, the French fans showed up and decided that they were going to outdo just about any other crowd out there in recent memory. And in some ways, they were kind of the most memorable part of the show. But Backlash was a heck of an event Saturday afternoon. We're going to talk some about that here tonight. But I think everyone that watched any of it, the biggest thing you kept hearing people talking about was, oh my God, the crowd. France is going nuts for Backlash. Celis, did you see some of Backlash last Saturday?
I saw it from start to finish. And I would like to say, just anytime you're in any type of performing arts, crowd energy helps influence how good something can be. Because you just feed off that natural energy that takes place. And even though if you just look at the matches that was on Backlash, it was nothing to be said, I got to see this live event. But if you saw how the crowd reactions to the move, the interactions, even one of the best things I've seen all year is Jey Uso's entrance. Just having that with the French, it was very, very epic. That made it a premium live event. And it really just depends on how eager you are, to be at these events. That really brings out the morale or the atmosphere of what it is. And if you compare it to sports venues, that's why when you go to somewhere like Madison Square Garden for a Knicks game, that's like one of the best places to go to just off the crowd energy when a team is doing well or when they want to see somebody perform that's really good. So it really, just a shout out to the French that shows that, hey, if you bring a live event here that's wrestling, whether if it's a premium live event or a SmackDown show or maybe something in the future, maybe a WrestleMania can come there one day. It shows that community is ready for it. And it's just great the feel of it when you watch it on TV.
Yeah, I was hearing that from a lot of folks that they were chalking it up to it's the first pay-per-view they've ever had over there.
Yep.
They've had, they've gone through obviously for house shows.
Yep.
But nothing of this level. And if that's what it took, if that's all it took to light that spark, it's like, my God, the crowd was And here's the other thing. We've been talking about how these afternoon shows, we love that they're short. They got this thing done in under 3 hours.
They did.
It was like 2 hours and 50 minutes. It was like the old days again.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
was loving it. I was loving
absolutely.
it. It was that old 2 hours and like 45, 50 minutes of runtime that I love so damn much with only 5 matches on there. But that crowd was just as hot, if not hotter, than they were the entire show for the main event.
Absolutely.
They were just somehow, I don't know where they got that energy, but they did. Props to those folks. No, they may not have voices this week, but somehow, some way, they showed up and they turned out to support their wrestlers.
Indeed.
Crab, did you see any of this or like hear anything about it this week?
The short answer is no. I forgot that it actually came on. I was at baseball all weekend. But as far as the crowd goes, it's interesting that you guys talk about that because I'm on the other half of my monitor. I see the Jey Uso's entrance from Backlash and
the lights,
the lights, the flashlights from the cell phones and stuff like that. And for me, I've never, ever in the history of ever given one rat's ass about what the crowd is doing.
Okay,
it's never mattered to me. And Celis, you went first, but my question was going to be: does this actually matter? Because at the end of the day, the bell rings. The match happens.
Yep.
That's the thing that's written down. But obviously it does matter because it made enough of an impression on you guys. It made enough of an impression on WWE on their YouTube channel. It made enough of an impression on all the men and women in the back that, yeah, this was an overwhelming display of enthusiasm from the crowd. That means less than nothing to me. But if it means something to you, then this was the show that you needed to be at. Personally, and the reason why it doesn't mean anything to me, I can watch a baseball game with no fans in the stands. I've done it before. I can watch, a wrestling match with no fans in the stands. We did it for a year and a half.
Yeah.
But seeing this is a thing that absolutely some people do need. I am not one of those people. As far as the show goes, to your point, I didn't watch it because there was nothing really on it that I felt that I needed to see. That was more important than going to the baseball game on Saturday. So that's where I was. But as far as the magnitude of what these shows mean to those people, I don't know how many of those people were local because it's Europe.
Right.
You can you can cover 5 different countries in a day in Europe on one train line. So if they were all local, if they were from everywhere, we see what the crowds in England have done in for those events like SmackDown Raw, a pay-per-view, Wembley Stadium for AEW. We know what that looks like over there. Clash at the Castle is going to be back. So for them to have this premium live event in France is a bigger, is a big deal. They've never had it before. And if that means that they had it in southern France, in Lyon, where they did, that means that people in Spain, people in Italy, people in Germany, it went from a 7-hour plane ride to a 2.5-hour train ride. That's a big deal to have something of this magnitude come to your doorstep. So, the enthusiasm would probably be, it's a miracle on top of a miracle because number one, WWE only comes once a year, to Europe. They may come once a year to one side of Europe, they may come another side of Europe on the other part of the year. So Western Europe gets, spring and Eastern Europe gets the fall or whatever they decide to do. But now the question is, where do they go from here? And how do they give, them a little bit more? There's only a few pay-per-views of the year. They're only doing 10 or 12 of them. We know WrestleMania is not going to happen, but does one of the other big 4 or 5, will we see a European SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, a Royal Rumble, Survivor Series? Hell, will NXT make the trip with them?
Hey,
that's kind of the thing because we already know, as we've seen, that there is a market for it. They want it, and this hasn't happened before now. So how do we make that happen? What does that look like? And then for us, selfishly, what does it mean for SummerSlam to come on at 1 in the afternoon instead of, later that evening? It's still SummerSlam. It's still August. Would you be more likely to watch it on a Saturday afternoon instead of going to the cookout, or would you rather keep it at its original time of late evening or late afternoon on the East Coast? Because you can't do both.
Yeah, it's just like you last week with the baseball game. I mean, there's always going to be other stuff going on. It's like whether it's baseball or it's like you're taking the family to the amusement park. There's a family reunion or something. There's always going to be competing events, especially during the summer. I think what we've seen now that, hell, we just had the Elimination Chamber in Australia that came on the East Coast at like 5:30 in the morning or something like that. Something ridiculous. Like it was your typical New Japan time when that'd be coming on. And they didn't let that stop them from doing that. So at this point, it seems pretty clear the message is if the money's there to run the event in an overseas market, they're not blinking on this. They will do it.
But to be fair, there's a difference between Backlash in France or whatever German pay-per-view they're doing in Berlin or Elimination Chamber, these B and C level pay-per-view events. That's why I said SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Because there is something that's for a number of reasons sets the tone for the next quarter of the year. So what does that mean to you for SummerSlam coming on at 1 in the afternoon in the East, 10 a.m. out West? What is that? Because psychology, speaking, it's like it feels different to watch a pay-per-view at 2 in the afternoon. It's a novelty for us, but it's like it would be different to watch the Royal Rumble before dinner.
So let me add to that too. So I'm gonna say we don't always have to watch it in front of our own TVs like we used to. We have to like sit down. Like literally when I watch it, I watch part of it in my car when I had to, just be in my car for a little bit. I watched part of it when I was at a restaurant, and then I watched part of it when I went to my uncle's house later that day. So it's like I saw it in pieces where like literally I had it on my phone at different parts, but I was able to still capture and know what's going on. So by it being more accessible, instead of just you have to be in front of a screen TV, you have so many accessible ways to look at it on the fly where if it is at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, you still have access to it where it's like I can still watch it and catch it and I can still do whatever I need to do for the day. Like granted, let's say if you was at the baseball game, right? Which I know for you wouldn't do because baseball is going to priority when you're there, but you may have somebody that has like, hey, I'm sitting here at the game. Let me check it out. Why it's like a mid-inning break or at the end of the inning, or if you're having like a 7th inning stretch, let me just watch a little bit of it. And it's accessible for you to do that.
Yeah, but that's also a thing too. You could say that with anything because DVRs are a thing and it's not going to stop the DVR crowd from doing what they need to do.
True.
I'm just saying that for those that need to watch it live, because if you're paying for cable in 2024, God bless you.
Oh, but please, yes.
If you're not willing to wait an extra day to watch the thing on Hulu, also cool. Same thing with Netflix when that happens next year.
Yeah.
So watching it on your terms is a separate issue. I'm saying for the people that need to watch it live, tweet about it live, blog about it live, react to it live. Does that take the feeling away when you get up at 10 a.m. on the West Coast to watch WrestleMania live from Eastern Europe, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or something like that? I'm not, there's just certain things that there's a feeling associated with it that you're used to. And for that to radically change, now granted, change for the better for the Europeans because they get to see something before 2 a.m. But, for us, how would that feel to watch the Royal Rumble and have it end? Because that is an event that you plan your day behind. For certain that's how important some of these things are. How would that feel to be in January, knowing that the Royal Rumble is coming on at 1 o'clock? I'm not saying that it has to change anything, but it definitely feels weird saying it.
It definitely would be different, but I think it's far more likely to happen now than at any time in the recent past.
If you get those reactions, absolutely.
Yeah, I like it. And I do think that for all of the things that you said, we're just going to counter that with energy is a big deal to WWE.
Yep.
And they've made the WWE universe like kind of a sentient being over the past 20 years. So if they can get that reaction from a crowd, from just the entrance, nothing's happened yet. The dude just came out. Then that's the crowd they want to put on TV. That's 100%. The crowd that's doing their marketing for him when they're trying to just market the company. That's what they want to see.
Yeah.
So Peoria, St. Louis, Des Moines, Tulsa, y'all need to step it up because France is coming.
That energy you cannot create. You can't just like hit a button. Hell, even with the fake cheers or whatever.
Yeah, when they did have the button, we saw immediately that this was bad.
Yeah, it don't work like that. It don't work like that as far as like it being legitimate or not. All right, so Sella, since you and me actually saw the show, and any thoughts on the actual show Backlash before we'll segue into some stuff that kind of expands on what we were talking about with now we know WrestleMania is happening, but Backlash itself, as far as the show goes, thoughts on that?
I thought it followed the script that needed to follow. You saw every single match go in the way, even though you could predict who was going to win each one of the matches. The story did itself where it concluded what it needed to conclude. The right person was on top. The wrestling was decent enough. The crowd reactions helped with the anticipation of, near falls. Oh, could this happen? So that way that it helped build within that storyline. But when I looked at it, sort of like what you said about the 2 hours and 50 minutes as far as the runtime, I felt, wow, I haven't seen a B-level pay-per-view show or premium live event, rather, booked in such a clean way from start to finish, especially the first match. The first match where how, members of oh my God, what's it? The Bloodline. The members of the Bloodline that had came out and how that unfolded and everything of that nature where it made nobody look weak. It was done very well. Each match was paced with the appropriate time. The gaps in between each match was good. We didn't have any silly fillers that wasted time. It just did its job and moved on as a B-level premium live event.
Yeah, they absolutely tightened up the time in between matches. We did not have the super long video packages.
Yep.
We did not have tons of commercials. It was like you got a little bit of that, and then they're like, all right on to the next darn match.
Yep.
They kept it to 5 matches. They did the deal where it was like the Bloodline and Orton and KO opening the show.
Yep.
Then we go to Bailey and the Triple Threat. Then we go to the third match.
Was it a tag team, women's tag team?
That's right, women's tag titles. What's the other one I'm forgetting? What else was it?
The Jey Uso versus Damian Priest.
That's right, Jey Uso, Damian Priest. Then we did the women's tag titles, and then we went to the main event with Cody and AJ. And everyone got time. It was just a really well laid out show.
Very clean.
Just by the time it was done, we weren't tired or nothing. It was just like, all right, get on with the day. And it was just so well laid out more than anything, I thought. I don't know. I had no complaints. As far as just like a show, I thought it hit on all cylinders.
And I really had no match of the night either because I thought every match was done differently in a way where it had its own star power within it needed to do. So I really didn't have any like favorite match of the night. Everything was just done appropriately. And even going back to the tag match with Jade and Bianca, I even like how they kind of protected Jade in a way, but still allowed her to be vulnerable and have time to build up what she can do in the ring. Even though you're still a little bit nervous about what she would do in a 1v1 match. But as a tag match, it was done very carefully where she took some hits, she took some bumps, but she also showed how a beast she is. So that was good where you made her look great. But hey, this girl can be beat if you do the right things, but it has to be the right 1v1 segment. But of course, future booking, Bianca's going to be the person that brings that out of her.
Yeah, they definitely had some moments in there where for the first time we saw Jade being a little bumpy, a little deer in the headlights. But the key was by the time that match ended, she ended with pure dominance and looked like the star
100%.
that she's been looking like. So I look forward to this summer. I want to see Jade and Bianca defending those tag titles on the house shows, on the road, just getting in reps, just getting matches, just getting time. And that polish, I think, will come.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Yeah. Did they look like a tag team?
Yeah. They got some spots in there where like some actual tag team moves and some creative stuff they came up with. They got matching gear. They're clearly invested in them being a team for more than just like they won the belts, but they're gonna lose them back in 2 weeks. So it's like I think they're in for at least the summer with this.
Oh wow!
I'll say this. They look like two superstars that compare together. Like they kind of remind me, and don't make this like a direct comparison, but like Chris Jericho and the Big Show, where it kind of works. They have their own individual styles, but it works. But as far as them being a team like FTR, no, they're not going to be that. But a team that where you have two individual superstars in their own way can work together and the pairing makes sense.
So you just tell me that Jade and Bianca look like Jericho as a compliment.
I did. That was a great tag team. A great tag team.
All right, then.
All right. I guess that covers Backlash. We can move on from that. So to expand on what we were just talking about a little bit ago, we got the word this week. We knew it was in the Rumbles. We know it was coming. Rumors were swirling, but now it's official. WrestleMania will be in Vegas. It will not be Minnesota. It will be Vegas. So it's going to be a little later. It's going to be over Easter weekend.
Actually. My birthday.
So, yeah, a little later in April it's going to be. So they're not going up against the Final Four and all that, but it's a done deal. It's going to be in Vegas. Interestingly enough, later this week, some news started swirling, some rumors that, because of course our next show is in Saudi Arabia, King and Queen of the Ring, which we'll be talking about a little bit in the second half. The Saudis allegedly are interested in opening that checkbook a little more under the guise of they want something with a little bit more oomph. They want something a little bit more, hey, not just King and Queen of the Ring, not just a crown jewel, but a bigger show like we were discussing earlier, like maybe a Royal Rumble, maybe a SummerSlam, maybe a Survivor Series, maybe, dare we say, WrestleMania Saudi Arabia? So the question is, we were already getting into this, how viable do you think this is? How much of a reality, knowing the money involved here and that they've already been going, WrestleMania Saudi Arabia, could it happen a lot sooner than we may think?
Jamal, you want to go first?
Not in Saudi Arabia, no.
Okay, now what about you were saying SummerSlam earlier, a SummerSlam or a Royal Rumble? One of those, a second tier, a Survivor Series. I can see like a Survivor Series maybe if they're going to up the ante.
Well, see, the problem is that there are 5 pay-per-views. There are 10 more premium live events, and there is a difference. There's a difference in context with the shows. There's a difference in continuity with the matches. You could take or leave Backlash. The surprise was the crowd. Mm-hmm. You could take or leave Elimination Chamber. The surprise was Australia. Mm-hmm. And you could take or leave the King of the Ring. The thing is going to be the Saudi aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Now, WrestleMania is a spectacle. And for what it means for the cities, for what it means for other wrestling promotions that latch onto the area, that has nothing to do with WWE, and they don't really care about that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what it does mean for WWE is to make it the biggest entertainment event in North America. And you could say that WrestleMania is on par with NBA All-Star Weekend, with the Super Bowl, with MLB All-Star Game, the Home Run Derby, the skills competition in the NBA. Yep. It is a spectacle that's on par with the top spectacle events, the Academy Awards, and anything in entertainment. It's up there, top 10 entertainment event in North America for the year. Yep. Could they have that caliber of an event for North America in Saudi Arabia?
It'd be tough. I can't see these indie shows happening in Saudi Arabia.
Well, no, because because progress. I don't think I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think WrestleCon's going to Jeddah. But what I am saying is that it would be very interesting politically, because of course there's that aspect of it. The interesting politically to have such a high-profile entertainment event in Saudi Arabia. Who's singing the national anthem? That is a thing they do for WrestleMania. Are they singing the national anthem of America in Saudi Arabia? Who's performing for the show? What's WrestleMania access going to look like? All of those things. Will the Raw after Mania be there? Because the Raw after Backlash is going to be somewhere in the U.S. The SmackDown was there the night before. A lot of those things that go into it, and they already have WWE World in Riyadh, I believe, that opened earlier this year. It's not about putting it on an event. They put on a Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. Yep. They put on a King of the Ring. First time in 10 years.
Right. They could just get the greatest WrestleMania ever, but it's in October.
Right. But so they put on King of the Ring, they put on the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, they've done the super shows or whatever it is. But for WrestleMania itself, for what that means politically, I can't imagine it happening outside of North America for all of the logistical things that have to happen that's associated with the show.
Yep.
Okay, well, by the same token, we're not talking Saudi Arabia. They've made it very known when they were over there in London that they are interested in the idea of WrestleMania London. That they were enough to like have John Cena come out and make the pitch, live on their TV. I think the main thing that's happening right now, it's clear, from this Vegas deal, and hell, all these big shows now. If you want WWE to come to your town nowadays, you got to open that checkbook and essentially pay them to come for one of these major shows. They are looking for a site fee. They are looking for a licensing deal. So that's why Saudi gets interested, because we know damn well the Crown Prince over there has the money. They've already made the one deal, so now they're talking about adding more on top of that to get a bigger show. WrestleMania obviously would be a shocker.
But would sponsors support it? So what if the Saudis are giving them $100 million up front?
Yeah.
But that's still, would that eat into the sponsorships for their show? Would it eat into pay-per-view buys and stuff like that? And obviously politically, God only knows what's going to happen in any direction. But I just don't see, I really see it being a bland show. And then, of course, there are other restrictions. Do we really want to see the entrances are over the top?
Right.
Except the women have to be in a cat suit now.
Yeah.
In a full body suit and stuff like that. I just feel that like it would be different. Of course it would be different. But politically, it's the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
And you hit all my points that I was going to say. The hugest aspect I would say is the political aspect. When you think about, as you mentioned before, with the great opening of the Super Bowl, the NASCARs, the Academy Awards, all those spectacles that you have of a grand event that WrestleMania will bring, a huge aspect of that is sponsorships and then other celebrities that help build up the event. When you think about all the celebrities that's been a part of WrestleMania, and I'm talking about the Snoop Dogs, and everybody, will all of them make a trip to Saudi Arabia? Will all of them make a trip to London? Those are rhetorical questions. Or is it easier to be in a continent that can really house them because they are used to the elements and dynamics that comes with the sponsorships and just the nature of the celebrity being there that brings to the event? For example, if you have it at Vegas, a lot of celebrities and everything are going to hound Vegas for what it is. Even if it was in Minnesota, Minneapolis, people will go to there just to be able to hold that event there. But in Saudi Arabia, I would doubt it.
Good point.
Yeah, I think London would be an easier sell because of
cultural
overlap.
It would.
Between the U.S. and America, but the 5-hour time difference between there and the East Coast would be interesting. The 8-hour time difference to the West Coast would be interesting, and that's also where your bread is buttered too. As much as they love that crowd in France, the market share, the audience share is about the size of Michigan. That's not comparable. As much as they love the UK, okay, cool. There's 70 million, Britons out there. Yeah. That's slightly more than California. So whatever that is, they still need to make it palatable for people to watch on TV in their largest market, and far and away that's the US.
Yep.
So as we've seen, what happens when you shake the tree a little bit, and granted, yes, the WWE cultists will follow them to hell and back, but it's WWE isn't a hardcore event; it is a casual event, which is why Flo Rida hosts the show, which is why The Weeknd is the music, which is why they have The Rock, which is why they have Drew Carey in the Hall of Fame, or Pete Rose, or whatever, or Mike Tyson, or whatever the thing is. It is a cultural event. It's bigger than a wrestling event. That's why it's the granddaddy of them all. I don't see, for a number of reasons, telling your core audience to watch that show 5 hours earlier is smart business.
Good points. I think we've nailed it. I think we've covered it. Yeah. If anything, London has got to be more of a possibility than Saudi Arabia.
Don't get me wrong. I would love to see WrestleMania at the Melbourne Cricket Grounds, 110,000 people, and that's seats.
Right.
They could easily fit 125,000 people in the MCG, no problem, with room to spare. I just don't see it happening logistically for America because Americans aren't waking up at 2 a.m. to watch WrestleMania night one.
There you go. There you go. Time will tell. Time will tell. Folks, it is time for our halftime break. So we're going to shoot to that. So stay with us because we'll be back with our second half. When we come back, we'll get into our indie spotlight, see what's going on the indies. We're going to talk some about the king and queen of the ring since they're coming up. And we're definitely going to have some time for some other stuff. So who knows what we'll get into. So stay with us, folks. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
A little birdie told me, everybody, that you may be interested in doing some sponsorship and advertising opportunities with us here at Big Gold Belt Media. You know what? You might as well, because we are the golden standard for all of your media needs. Why would you want to go anywhere else? Besides, all of your pre-roll ads, your mid-roll ads, as well as your on-air reads are going to be done by me, Damian G. Yeah, professional broadcaster, Damian G. We do all types of social media promotions. That means your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, and your business website all get shouted out on our network here at Big Gold Belt Media, where we cover wrestling, movies, comics, and more. And you can find out more information and make those inquiries, kids, because, limited time offer here at biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com. Again, that is biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com. Why would you want to go anywhere else? I wouldn't. Well, I work here, but I still wouldn't even if I didn't. So again, Big Gold Belt Media for all your sponsorship and advertising opportunities, your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, all of your social media platforms, as well as any business website you want us to promote on our show. biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com, and let them know Damon G sent you.
Thanks for being with us here tonight, folks, on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. When we come back from halftime, we like to check out what's going on in the indies. So here's the Giant Crab with the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast Indie Spotlight.
It's been a tough week for Toronto, and Lord knows they can use some good news. And I have it. 2 weeks from today, it's the band Lucha Extreme Block Party. That's May 23rd at Parkdale Hall, 1605 Queen Street West in West Toronto. That's just off of King and Queen at Roncesvalles. It's Parkdale Hall. You know where it is. Just get on the light rail, right straight down Queen Street from downtown. But the Extreme Block Party, Jaman's Lucha is a fantastic organization, and they do a lot of great stuff. Obviously, the band Lucha, so they're really based in that Lucha Libre style. A lot of the guys that I see that are on the show, Rhino. It's the Extreme Block Party, so Rhino and Dreamer. ECW fame is going to be there. Super Crazy. Very excited to see him. That might actually bring me up there. So yeah, good show. Looks interesting. The Hype Up Party starts at 7. Lucha time is at 8 p.m. That's 2 Thursdays from now, May 23rd. The Extreme Block Party, 1605 Queen Street West in Toronto, Parkdale Hall on the west side of Toronto. You can go ahead and tell them Big Old Belt sent you. But Parkdale Hall, get your tickets at demandlucha.com. Click on the show, Extreme Block Party. That's May 23rd, 2 weeks from now. Doors at 7. Bell starts at 8. And that's the Indie Spotlight for this week.
Awesome. Indie wrestling heating up as we head towards the summertime. Lots of shows, as we'll be covering each and every week here at the Big Gold Belt. So we can, second half here. I don't think we need to talk about King and Queen of the Ring just yet. I mean, there's got to be some other stuff going on in wrestling that we could get into. What else out there has been getting people's attention this week? For once, we don't have like a gigantic news. It feels like.
Yeah, I think. Well, as far as King and Queen of the Ring goes, it's the first time in 10 years that they're doing it. So I know. Yeah, so we talked about how the Saudis want an exclusive event, a big event. Well, what more could they want other than WrestleMania? They had a Royal Rumble. It was the biggest. They had, another show out there that was like a special show. Then they have King of the Ring. Well, I mean, damn. What could they possibly want? What I think, though, even if they have a Crown Jewel or something like that, I think they got to make it a weekend. You have the show on the weekend. You have Raw out there Monday after, Friday, SmackDown out there the Raw before. Bring NXT, make it a company-wide event. I think it doesn't have to be WrestleMania for it to be the biggest WWE event in that city or that region's history. And if they can take a one-day event and expand it into 4 with access and WWE World open it up in the country, that to me is a bigger deal than just, oh, we're already having WrestleMania. Okay, cool. Well, if you're having WrestleMania, where's Raw going to be? Is it going to be in the country? Or is it going to be in Boston? Because we've seen what that happens when they go to Saudi Arabia, they wake up in Buffalo the next night. So it's I think making it a bigger event is the deal. And hopefully NXT is really cooking right now. When are they going to tour in earnest? I know that it's not about the Performance Center, but they're definitely doing things that I think that it's time for them to get out of the house. They got to fly the nest.
Yeah, and more than just doing the coconut loop and doing their their premium live events, in Vegas or whatever, or WrestleMania weekend. They used to tour every weekend, and it's time to do that again. It's been time, but it's really time now.
Yeah, that's kind of like the question is like, what's stopping them? What is the thing that's keeping NXT from not touring the way they used to? And even when they did tour, they didn't tour with the main roster. They met up occasionally,
smaller venues,
but they would run at smaller venues. It was like kind of a pre-AEW AEW. And when AEW became a thing, they didn't necessarily compete, but they ran a similar circuit. I don't see why they can't just expand the footprint. Get out of Florida, head into Southern Alabama, head into Georgia. See what South Carolina's doing. But the UFC Performance Center or every other pay-per-view is just kind of like, nah, man, we're starting to get like the French fans in the need to demand NXT. And I think that's kind of, we're at the point right now. It's like, nah, we're not coming to the Performance Center. You gotta come out.
And I think just to add to that point, if you have them travel more, you might have more people when they go to the main roster. They make their Raw, they make their SmackDown. They'll be able to stay and hang in there longer because now you got a bigger following a little bit that goes into different areas that can capitalize on what they are. And then with Trick Williams, the way he is, this is probably one of the hottest NXT World Champions that you have right now in a while that you can ride with him and see what he can do to build this company or expand them in a way for the next year. Because I figure by him having the title, he's going to be a part of this picture for a while until Royal Rumble comes up for 2025, and then he'll make his mark to transition. But this is a perfect opportunity to build somebody that is super red hot, or white hot rather, to see what he can do.
Yeah, a red hot babyface on the road is always a good thing. I wonder now, the only thing I can think of is maybe with the new ownership, it makes me wonder like just how much of a investment they're willing to make into NXT. But that's, I mean, hell, NXT is going to be on the CW this fall. So it's clearly not going away. It's going to be on like network television. Come this fall. So that maybe that would be the time to do it, is you do it with like this rollout onto the CW that like as an extra push with that, because we know it's going to be leaving USA. It's going to go to the CW. Who knows what night it's going to air? We don't know any of that yet. But with the rollout on network TV, that would be an interesting time to do it. And also, hell, it'd give it a different look if they tape some of the TV outside the Performance Center. I think, the pressure's got to be on a little bit more with it not on USA this fall.
And just to add to that, and now I'm not plugging YouTube TV because I am a subscriber to YouTube TV. However, YouTube TV had CW as like an add-on in a way. So it wasn't a live channel. It was like an app within the channel series. So the only way you could see the CW at first, if you like say All-American, you recorded All-American, you'll see it like the next day when it came up. But now it's actually a live running channel like you would see on cable. Seriously, that's how it was. So within the past year, it's now become a live running channel. The CW programming is changing slightly for those that follow it, where they have like one show they kind of promote and then put it in different areas of time period. Like All Americans going now, the All American Homecoming starting in the summer, then it leads right into September. Okay, you got this brand new show that's coming out, and now you're trying to rebrand your whole channel with NXT coming through. So I really think, based on the dynamic of who the viewers are looking at the programming of the CW, this could transcend of what you're doing and have a new market that comes in here. And let me say, and I don't mean to be gender biased with this, but now you're enhancing your female market to be a part of this with the CW programming. It can happen.
But and also to your point, CW is looking into more live sports.
Yes,
they've covered college football. They're covering college basketball.
Yes,
so they're definitely trying to make themselves known in other avenues other than Seventh Heaven and Smallville reruns. So that is a thing too. However, CW is a 99%. It's a network television channel.
Yep.
Now the question is, CW is something that's covered in damn near every major market in America.
Yep.
Do they push the envelope and put NXT on Wednesday?
I think part of that, what's going to come down to is the whole schedule. I think for WWE is going to change this fall because we don't know what Netflix is going to do with Raw.
Nope.
We don't know necessarily what USA is going to do with SmackDown.
Nope.
And I think the CW too is. I think all three shows could conceivably be on different nights because I think the key is everyone forever's been like, well, Raw has to be on Monday. I don't think Netflix
it doesn't have to be
married to that at all. I think Netflix could totally throw that out the window with the money they're paying.
You could have Sunday Night Raw to go against Sunday Night Football, whatever the case may be. They just had a great live show with the greatest roast of all time with Tom Brady, and that was on Sunday and did very well on the numbers. You could have Raw do the same thing they did on a Sunday night and have people look forward to that.
Now, let me ask you this, though. And I guess once getting closer to the end of the year, and we'll have to see what that looks like.
Yep.
Netflix doesn't have to abide by any television standards. They can have Raw be 2 hours and 40 minutes one night. Then in the following Monday, it can be 2:15.
Yeah.
It's
please no more 3 hours.
I mean, it can be a lot of different things. Netflix, because they are their own distributor, they can do whatever they want to it. Now, as far as the NXT on the CW goes, that is the thing. That is an hour block of television, or a 2 hour block of television. Easy for the CW because it's not about the ratings. CW's ratings aren't comparable to the big four networks.
Nope.
It really is about just getting the younger crowd that's not watching Fox or ABC into the rooms of the living rooms of CW.
Yep.
That's what they get at NXT. If you put it on Wednesday, that makes it very interesting because of the fact that AEW has been getting hit left and right. It seems like this year more than any other year by preemptions, cancellations, by other tomfoolery from TNT and TBS. And it's not just March Madness. It seems that they've been just put through the ringer as far as the time slot. CW is a lot more stable. And I think for NXT, the exposure, because we don't know what Raw and SmackDown are going to look like, the exposure could be, it doesn't have to be live. That's another thing too, the NXT. They could tape it and then air it before SmackDown does. If SmackDown still comes on 8 o'clock, they could put the thing on at 7. So, assuming that it's an hour and not 2. So, if they could, there's a lot of, it's really up in the air. And, does NXT still stay 2 hours?
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be a thing.
I just thought of something with the Pandora's box we're opening here with the way this whole entire schedule could change and with the way everything's moving to a different spot now. So I think the key part would be this. If Netflix moves Raw off of Mondays to another night, and USA now is only shows they're going to have SmackDown.
Yep.
Does USA take SmackDown and be like, well, we've always had wrestling on Monday. We're just put SmackDown on Monday in the old Raw slot?
It can happen.
Why not? I mean, I can't see a reason to keep SmackDown on Friday. If you're USA, why would you want it on Friday? And if Monday opens up with Netflix having Raw on another night, you put SmackDown in the old Raw time slot on USA.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie, I did like SmackDown, just old time's sake on Fridays.
Mhm.
I hated when they moved to Tuesday, and even when it was Friday and it was already pre-recording, you can see what the dirt sheets already had it for the show on that Friday. I still enjoyed watching it on Friday. For me, it was just a good precursor knowing that college football was coming up on Saturday and then pro football on Sunday, especially during the fall or football season. But like you said, it wide open for what they need to do. You have a slot that you always have for USA where you knew wrestling was coming on that channel on that day. It could easily happen. Netflix is going to be the wild card that sees what happens with everything else. But that Wednesday NXT is intriguing.
Hell, SmackDown could end up on Wednesday.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They could have played the ante that way, and USA be like, no, we're putting SmackDown on Wednesday.
I mean, realistically, what does USA have to air?
Nothing. They
That's the
have nothing but reruns now.
Yeah. USA is not like in a position where they have a stacked schedule like the old days. SmackDown probably is going to be like their biggest thing and be like, what night are they going to have it on?
It's like NBC Light. All you see is Law and Order, 911. That's on USA as far as those reruns. So it's like an NBC Light.
Yeah. So that will be very interesting to see, what that looks like, and also the response from fans that have to subscribe to Netflix. I know we talked about this before, but you're putting, things are expensive, and the fact of the matter is, if you do not have Netflix and you know that Raw is moving, does that encourage you to get the service, or do you just watch everything else without the additional charge? Do you need Raw to watch SmackDown? Can you watch SmackDown without watching Raw? That's going to be very interesting to see how the brand split remains as Raw is behind a paywall now.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the storytelling is going to be very interesting too. Yes, there's two separate brands, but if you have Roman Reigns showing up on Raw for no reason, you want that Netflix account. So that's going to be interesting. The other thing that I wanted to mention was you have the King and Queen of the Ring itself in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, let's talk King and Queen of the Ring. That's
right,
coming up.
Right. So that's coming up soon. 2 weeks?
Like the weekend
before Labor Day, Memorial Day?
I think it is Memorial Day week. I think.
Oh, okay. So it's coming up. It's coming up very recently. Now, do you think the Saudis have a point that they're just getting these filler pay-per-views without any substance, and do you think that it's time for them to move into like an actual meaningful show? Because the Greatest Royal Rumble doesn't really mean anything. King of the Ring doesn't really do anything. You just get the title and you get to wear that stupid cape and scepter for like a month. But then other places are getting actual substantive pay-per-views. We saw what Backlash looked like, and Backlash is usually the WrestleMania rematch show. We see the Elimination Chamber, which usually has some part to set up a bit of WrestleMania show. These are just glorified house shows, and we've called them that for a long time. So if they do get something substantive, yes, I did say earlier that I would like to see a weekend of WWE events happen over there. But is there room for that?
Mm-hmm.
Because their year is already full. We know what the big four are. We've had a couple things here and there. Backlash was just a surprise. It wasn't even supposed to be anything. But is there room for a major pay-per-view in the calendar in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, well, I think that goes into the question I was seeing thrown around this week, seeing how the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring, because we have both versions now as being laid out. It feels like they're putting a lot more effort into it this year. We have brackets. We have 16 people in each one. So it's a 16-person bracket on each side, 8 from Raw, 8 from SmackDown. They're doing matches. They started on Raw. They had all the matches got time. They're laying it out in such a way that even apparently this weekend there's going to be matches, the opening round matches held on the house shows. Yeah. So there's Kofi versus Rey Mysterio apparently is going to be a house show match this weekend. So they're throwing out like some definite different ideas into this and definitely giving it more time, it seems, than in the past. So I kind of get the feeling it might be a bit more relevant than it has been in the past. But of course, the proof's going to be in the pudding. We got to see what happens over the next month. And by the way, it's the May 25th is when it goes down. So we have a good 3 weeks, I guess. That's 3 weeks.
Yep.
That.
Even Jordan Kirby, shout out to Jordan. We wanted to make sure they helped us out on that one too, with May 25th.
There you go, Jordan. Appreciate us throwing that in there. So yeah, I think is the big question over the next month. If they continue on the trend they started this week with really giving the matches some time, I like the idea of putting some matches on house shows too. Then I think it could be we might have a little bit of fire, a little bit of spice behind the King of the Ring again. Then of course the next layer becomes okay. Whoever wins the thing, how do they use them coming out of it to where it's relevant to be like, oh, this actually means something beyond the guy's got a crown on his head and the lady's got a tiara.
Now that is where my problem is, and I'll tell you why. I think it's going to be a great moment right now for when May 25th and you got your winners, but it's so close to Money in the Bank, which is going to be in Toronto, one of Jamal's favorite cities in the world, where it's going to like kill the effect quickly. In my opinion,
I mean, Money in the Bank is like a month away though. It's the 4th of July weekend.
But let's say, for example, case in point, right? So let's say, in my opinion, I think Gunther on the men's side should win King of the Ring. Because if you build this to be the next big star, kind of like what you did with your Stone Colds and things when it was a big moment back in the day, if Gunther doesn't win Money in the Bank, does that kill his momentum because he doesn't have that cash-in case because he has a crown on his head? Or should it be a trajectory where for this season, because it's so close, whoever wins King of the Ring should be the favorite to probably win Money in the Bank?
Well, that's always been the question about King of the Ring itself. What are the stakes?
Yeah,
because it seems that you just give it this novelty item and you wear it until you have a character change. So King Corbin or, Wade Barrett as King or King Booker, these are things. And if the gimmick works for a while, you keep it and you're stuck with it. And if it doesn't work, well, you won it anyway. Okay, cool. We just add that to the accomplishments list. But if it would obviously give the show more weight if the King could have some sort of power.
Yeah.
And that's would be kind of the thing too. Maybe the King would be co-GM for a month, and then of course abuse that power immediately and make himself champion, or whatever. I don't know what the stakes would be, but they have to add some stakes to it, other than just the ability to say that you're king, because
Absolutely.
anybody could say that as part of their gimmick, and people would just. I mean, Roman's the tribal chief; he doesn't need to be king.
And when you think about somebody like you just mentioned, those former kings like King Corbin and King Booker was the last one that really took that gimmick and really elevated him in his WWE career. Granted, yes, 5-time WCW champion. He already was made before he came to WWE, but that really elevated him to another level. The only person that makes sense in that way, if you're trying to book it like this now, is King Gunther because of where he's from and how he used that in the element of that. However, if it's not him using that as a trajectory to a world champion like you did with a King Booker, then I think it's going to be a waste. And for the women's side, whatever you want to do for the queen, it needs to be something that's going to elevate that character to be something of that next level. And I hope, like you said, Jamal, if it's something like of a high stake that whoever gets this not only does a gimmick enhancement, it also gives them something where it's like, I am the top person in wrestling right now because I'm truly a king. Even though I'm not the world champion yet, I'm truly a king. Something needs to make sure it stands out from that, but it doesn't hurt either Money in the Bank or this tournament, which is a classic one.
Right. And then maybe that they shouldn't take it literally. Maybe you shouldn't become a literal king of the ring. And maybe King of the Ring is the tournament that you get that is another championship based prize. Oh, well, he won King of the Ring, so he gets to fight in the King of the Ring match. And maybe the king maybe that's it. Maybe the King of the Ring is a tournament and the winner faces at the end of the night the WWE champion. And then the WWE champion
one night tournament, and you get your title match that night.
Yeah, you get your title match that night, and you walk out King of the Ring, or not. Like you can be a conference champion and not win the big one, but you still get a banner at the end. Next season. So but there has to be something that adds weight to the King of the Ring tournament. I don't know what that something could be, But if the Saudis are realizing that, wait a minute, we just looked up what this word kayfabe means, and we're not getting a part of it. No, we need something more.
All right.
This is the way you do it.
Our guy Jordan here, here's his picks. He's agreeing on Gunther. Gunther should win. They are setting it up. I could see King Gunther. I think another possibility we don't know the SmackDown side yet of either bracket. I could see Jey Uso, as high as he is, possibly getting this as a little something without having to give him an actual title. Jordan also says Tiffany is going to win on the women's side. So Tiffany Stratton, I could see rocking the tiara. It'd make perfect damn sense. It'd fit the gimmick. It's an accomplishment for her to get her, off to the races without giving her a title just yet. Tiffany Stratton, she's got to be a pretty big front runner for the Queen title. The Queen of the Ring.
Let me add this, Will. So I'm looking at it correctly on the USA Today. It has this announced for some of the SmackDown competitors
let's hear it.
For tomorrow. So you have Randy Orton versus AJ Styles, and that's scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay.
Angelo Dawkins versus Tama Tonga, that's scheduled for tomorrow. But then you have two, which may be house shows because it says TBD right now. Baron Corbin versus Carmelo Hayes, and LA Knight versus Santos Escobar for the King side. Now,
LA Knight's the other one I'd say on the men's side there from SmackDown.
Now, on the Queen side, you have it where it has Bianca Belair versus Candice LeRae on the SmackDown side, Jade Cargill versus Piper Niven, and then you have Shayna Baszler versus Zelina Vega, who is the former Queen of the Ring, actually the inaugural Queen of the Ring, but it has two empty spots saying to be determined right now. So Tiffany hasn't been announced yet, but you got to think she will be in there.
She got to be in there. She got to be. It fits her too perfectly. I don't know. That's my thought. All right, we got a couple minutes left here. Anything else, guys?
Yeah.
We wrapping up?
So I will say this. Oh, go ahead, Jamal. You first.
No, go ahead.
I would say this. Now, it's been teases and rumors. If you guys have seen on Twitter, maybe some cryptic messages. I would love to see if we could have some part of the Wyatt Six come out, maybe at some point. I know it was rumors of some cryptic event of 5/25/24, which is the date of the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring. That's going to be good. Is that somewhere where you'll see the Wyatt Six come back and, Uncle Howdy, especially if you saw the end of the Bray Wyatt story that came on Peacock. I'm really interested to see how they're going to do that. So I will plug to see what they're going to do with Bo Dallas in that type of way, or Uncle Howdy. But I would love to see him come back in a way that can acknowledge or at least give tribute to Bray Wyatt, but in his own way, similar to, what could have been for other things of that nature, like maybe an Owen Hart situation, but you never know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually what it is. AEW has the Owen Hart Memorial Tournament, which is a good idea in theory, but realistically, it doesn't do anything for anybody. So that's really it has to be what it is for King of the Ring. I read a report earlier today that Detroit had to clarify that as a city, they are not putting a bid together for WrestleMania 2027.
Oh, wow.
Right. So they're already 2 years away, which assumes that they have the plan for next year already, 2026 locked up. But Detroit is officially not interested. It would have been interesting because it would have been WrestleMania 43, and of course, 40 years after the third one, which was at Silverdome, and then 23 was
23. Yep, and Detroit 23 was at Detroit.
Yeah, it was at Ford Field. So 40 years of WrestleMania history would have been interesting to capitalize on that. But they're the city saying, that's not in the plans. Now, of course, the question is, if they're already talking about WrestleMania 2027 and cities are bidding for it and planning for it, do you think that Triple H, you think that that's kind of like, well, wait a minute. We saw the mayor of London tweet Triple H, and Triple H say, hey, let's talk. We see that Detroit is not thinking about WrestleMania 2027. Well, if they're not, then other cities are.
Right.
Do you think that this is becoming an Olympics, level event where cities from around the world are actually bidding on this thing a couple years in advance, in the same way that we know what the Super Bowl is going to be? And more importantly than that, now that they were thinking about Detroit, we've seen it in cold weather cities before where it hasn't happened. Do you think it's possible that they may just do Minneapolis in the freezing goddamn cold in March in late Minneapolis?
Or the year after next? Yeah, I could easily see the year after Vegas being Minneapolis if they just flip-flopped them for whatever reason. Yeah, pretty much at this point, the way it seems to me now, the only requirements are they want a dome and they want a lot of money.
They want they want a brand new stadium. So can't wait for them to go back to Vegas when the A's stadium open up in like 2028.
And then you got Nashville that's having a new stadium coming up soon. And then, of course, Inglewood is having a new arena for the Clippers, but you can still always go back to SoFi and use that new Inglewood arena for anything NXT or smaller related. So keep LA on your map too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy that we're thinking about WrestleMania that way.
Yeah, I think the only things that's really certain outside of these, venues is New York's always going to be in play. LA is always going to be in play. Chicago is always going to be in play. Those are the three that they'll always grab.
And the Bears are rumored to get a new stadium too in Chicago.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go. Once that gets it, they'll hit Chicago again, so they can be right smack dab in the middle of the country. So your major media markets are always going to have a leg up. That's
CM Punk retirement match, Chicago 2028. You heard it here first.
In the new stadium.
In the new stadium.
There you go.
Caleb Williams on the front row.
Mark it down. Mark it down. Tonight, we called it here way back in 2024 here on Big Gold Belt. All right, folks. We made it to our hour. Another fun week here on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. Thanks for being with us tonight. Talk wrestling and all kinds of other stuff. Busy times as always. So each and every week, Thursday night, 8 p.m., we are here streaming live on Twitch, YouTube, X, any streaming platform we can manage to get a signal on. We'll try to be on it. So we are here. The audio version drops the next day on YouTube and on podcast platforms still at this time. So if you're just looking for the audio, it is there the next day for you to check out. On the social media, it's at Big Gold Belt across the board. So Instagram, X, all that stuff. Big Gold Belt has all your social media there. And of course, the website, biggoldbelt.com. Wrestling, movies, comics, and more. It's your one-stop shop. So make sure you bookmark biggoldbelt.com. Thanks for being with us here, folks. We'll be back next Thursday to talk some more wrestling, watch some graps in the meantime, and stay safe. And we will talk to you later.
All I really need